Today I'm going to talk to you about the Narciso Rodriguez For Him Bleu Noir series of fragrances. Big fan of the Parfum edition of this collection of fragrances. I'm also going to throw in the Vetiver Musc as well. This is not part of the Bleu Noir series, but this is the latest Narciso Rodriguez men's fragrance. But I should also say I actually reviewed the Eau de Toilette back in 2015. In fact, I was actually on a train traveling from San Francisco, well, the Bay Area, all the way up. I believe I was going to Portland, Oregon. So I shot the video on the train. If you haven't watched that video, go catch that video. But I'm going to go over the entire collection that I was able to find. Of course, I've been talking about the Bleu Noir Parfum. I've spoken about the Vetiver Musc. I'm going to revisit the original Eau de Toilette. I have the Eau de Toilette Extreme. And I also have the Eau de Parfum, which I haven't smelled. I haven't smelled any of, well, actually, I should say, I haven't smelled the Extreme or the Eau de Parfum. And in this particular video, I bought a new bottle of the Eau de Toilette because I haven't had it for a while. It's been 10 years since I first reviewed it. But I'm going to go over the entire collection. Highly, highly recommend the Noir Parfum, the Bleu Noir Parfum. It's the best. And then also, you know, compare it to Dior Homme Intense, the Dior Homme Parfum, and the new Dior Homme Parfum. So, again, I did the first video of the original Bleu Noir series back in 2015, but we're going to start off with the Bleu Noir Parfum. For him, Bleu Noir Parfum, to me, takes the fragrance into the direction of something smelling a bit like Dior Homme Intense. I think it's mostly Dior Homme Intense, but I associate that DNA with the entire series. There's Dior Homme, the original, not the 2020 version, but the original. And then there's the Intense and then also the Parfum. So that DNA has changed. The new Dior Homme Parfum is so different. It doesn't smell like what the original Dior Homme Intense and the original Dior Homme Parfum smelled like. But if you're looking for that, you can get it in the Parfum edition. So the entire series of Narciso Rodriguez fragrances are created by Sonia Constant, except for the Vetiver Musc. And for me, out of all of them, you must, if you buy designer fragrances, you must have a bottle of this in your collection. It's quite good. It takes the original in Eau de Toilette. You can smell traces of the original in Eau de Toilette, but you've got the addition of that powdery iris in here. Takes it into a very sexy level. So it's a really awesome fragrance to have in your collection, as I said, especially if you are a fan of designer fragrances, men's designer fragrances. And also if you like that original Dior Homme Intense or Dior Homme Parfum DNA. Not the new one, which pretty bad. All right, so you can find this online for $74, and it features the notes of cedarwood, vetiver, cypress, bergamot, mandarin, cardamom, sandalwood, iris or orris, leather, muskin, suede, and tonka. The Parfum is the best in the series, as I said. So you've got those dry woods, earthy notes in here that the collection is known for, but it's been freshened up a little bit, not too much, a little bit freshened up with the citrusy touches, but it's also been deepened up in the base with the leather and suede note. But along the way, you have the experience of the iris, which the leather and the iris are already pretty trademark in the Dior Homme Parfum, the original. So you have it here. So it's a nice fusion of two different styles of fragrances, or two different fragrances into one, which makes for a really awesome wear. I also think it's a perfect fragrance to wear in the autumn. The DNA is really gorgeous. I think Sonia Constant did a great job with it, taking that original DNA into this more powdery, leathery direction, and really a great smelling men's designer fragrance. It's a really, really awesome, classy offering. And again, if you like designer fragrances, or you just like the iris in fragrances, in men's fragrances, you love the DNA of Dior Homme Intense, this is a must-have in your collection. Definitely worth having in your collection. And I don't know what Narciso Rodriguez is doing with the collection, because they did launch the Vetiver Musc last year. So are they killing this collection? Because just a little history, Narciso Rodriguez, for him, I believe the original one, which is completely discontinued, created by Francis Kurkdjian, launched in 2006. It was an ozonic fougere featuring violet. It's got this kind of a wet, earthy smell to it, but it was in the fougere style. Really loved it. And they had multiple variations, like multiple flankers. I believe they had a musk edition, which a lot of people say it's the same as the Eau de Parfum edition. I have both. Really love that series of fragrances, but it got discontinued. Then, of course, they launched the For Him Bleu Noir series, and now we've got the Vetiver Musc. But again, out of the 5 fragrances I'm talking about today, the Parfum is a must-have if you are a lover of men's designer fragrances. In fact, I consider it one of the best men's designer fragrances out there on the market, and it's all at the discounters for 100 ml, $74. It's totally worth it. There is a less expensive 50 ml bottle on the market as well. Less expensive, but still I think you get less juice, and I think it's better value to get the 100 ml bottle. Plus the bottle I think is quite gorgeous. This series of bottles I appreciate as great great bottles for the guys. But I think also the women's bottles are somewhat similar, but a little bit more vertical and a little bit more vertical bottles. Similar ideas, but more feminine colors. But let's talk a little bit about the Musk EDT. This is the first one that's not done by Sonia Constant. And Sonia Constant has done a lot of men's fragrances for Tom Ford. In fact, when this fragrance was launched, the Bleu Noir, the EDT, that same year also was Noir Extreme by Tom Ford, and she's done quite a few Tom Ford fragrances, so they're completely different fragrances. But for me, what happens with the Vetiver Musc, it's a clean fragrance created by Mathilde Bijou. It's also 100 ml, $66 right now, so that's also a great fragrance to have. But the Parfum edition is only about $8 more, and you get a stronger fragrance. In the original Bleu Noir For Him Bleu Noir series, but with the addition of the iris and leather. But here with the Musk EDT, it's a fresh fragrance, musky, clean, a bit metallic, vetiver focused fragrance. And it features notes of cypress, nutmeg, cardamom, musk, bourbon geranium, red seaweed, vetiver, lavender, cedarwood, and patchouli. So it has all the characteristics of a fougere, by the way, but it is earthy, woody, grassy, and also a bit sharp, metallic, clean, ice cold. Very, very clean and ice cold, I think. You've got those qualities. I think what they've done is bring out the ice cold qualities of a lot of the aromatics that are in here, and the musk that's in here also gives you a bit of a cold, clean feeling. It's a very clean, crisp fragrance, and I think if a guy's looking for something not overly complicated, simple, clean, fresh, classy, masculine offering, this definitely will satisfy. It's a clean one. Aromatic, spicy, woody, and musky. Let me know if you're a fan of that one. Between the two, I much prefer the Bleu Noir Parfum. It's just the DNA that I really enjoy. But I think the Vetiver Musc EDT is also really, really great. For Him, Vetiver Musc. All right, let's talk a little bit about the one that started the collection, the Bleu Noir EDT. I actually bought this before it was launched in the States and Europe, and it was in the winter that it launched, and I brought it back with me, and of course I shot it on a train. So if you are interested in watching a video from 10 years ago, check that video out. Just search Narciso Rodriguez For Him Bleu Noir. So this launched in 2015, as I said, and it's currently at the discounters for $50 in a 100 ml format. The thing is with this collection, it always reminded me of a few other men's fragrances. It kind of reminds me a little bit of, let's see, what does it remind me of? Hermes, Terre de Hermes, but in a different way. But also a little bit of Icon by Dunhill, but Icon also had the addition of the citruses. So this kind of reminded me of a little bit of Icon by Dunhill and also Terre de Hermes, the original. So in the end, it's lots of vetiver and the cardamom spices, pretty prominent with the cardamom spices. So it's quite spicy. It's also very musky as well. We've got a lot of musk in here. It's clean. So I think the brand is known for doing musky fragrances. I think there's a lot of the musky fragrances for the ladies. The ladies collection has a lot of musks. But I think they've done quite a bit of it for the guys as well. It really does remind me of Terre de Hermes for some strange reason. I think it's a little bit of Terre de Hermes and a little bit of Declaration. I think it's the cardamom and the spices. That's what's giving me those kind of vibes. But in the end, it's woody, spicy, aromatic, musky, clean, super clean. And if you like more masculine leaning fragrances, I think this should satisfy. I think the Parfum, since it does have the iris and it also has the powdery effect, some guys might not think that's super masculine, but I like both. I prefer the Parfum, but this is the one that started it all, the original in Eau de Toilette. All right, so this next one and the one after, I haven't experienced. This is the Eau de Toilette Extreme, which I believe is not easy to find anymore. Let me know if you guys have this. And I've not experienced it before, and this is the bottle. This actually launched in 2020, whereas the For Him Bleu Noir launched in 2015, the original in Eau de Toilette. The Vetiver Musc just launched in 2024. And the Parfum, the Bleu Noir Parfum, launched in 2022. So I think they're launching fragrances every 2 years almost, it seems like. So let's see what they're going to launch next year. Maybe they'll launch a Parfum edition of the Vetiver Musc. Who knows? So the Eau de Toilette Extreme, I feel like, does take the fragrance into a bit more of a different direction, keeping the DNA of the original. They classify this as a woody, citrusy, aromatic fougere. Once again, it's Sonia Constant. It features the notes of cedarwood, vetiver, green mandarin, ebony tree, basil, amber, and musk. So between the Extreme, the Eau de Toilette Extreme, and the original, I think I prefer the original Eau de Toilette. When they mention the citrusy note, it doesn't come off very citrusy, but there's something that's not really working here for me. I mean, I'm reminded of the original for sure. The original DNA is there, but the additional notes that are in here are done in a not so appreciative way. So this is a dud for me. And last but not least, we've got the Eau de Parfum, which I don't know at all. Let's find out what it's all about. But so far, it's the Parfum. I think what I had done was I had dismissed the collection because I didn't really care. Well, I guess I was a little bored of the DNA of the original For Him Bleu Noir in Eau de Toilette because it reminded me too much of fragrances I was familiar with, ones that I had gotten bored of. But when the Parfum came out, I was super excited about it. I read that it had the iris and so on, and sure enough, I smelled it in France and I bought a bottle there right on the spot. So here is the Eau de Parfum box. This one launched in 2020. I'm sorry, no, 2018. So this came 3 years after the original Eau de Toilette. So the bottle is darker. This is classified as a woody floral, and it's currently 100 ml for $60. So it features the notes of cedarwood, ebony tree, musk, bergamot, vetiver, orange blossom, osmanthus, black pepper, amber. Sure enough, it's quite deeper. Keeping the original DNA, it's twisted though. The floral notes are prominent. I thought with the osmanthus note, I might get fruity, but I'm not getting fruity from it. The floral notes are also giving me a slight green floral edge as well, which even though I get a greenness from the overall DNA of the fragrance, I didn't think it smelled as green as it did now. It's almost like a green stem freshness. I'm gonna spritz this one on skin because I have not experienced this one that much. The DNA is there of the original, but it is twisted. And I'm gonna spray the Parfum on the other hand, which is my favorite still. The original is so good. I mean, I'm sorry, the Parfum is so good, not the original. It's interesting, when you spritz the Parfum, it's about the original DNA, and then the iris kicks in, and that's when it gets so super sexy and exciting. Now, as far as the performance of these fragrances goes, these are not beast mode whatsoever. Not at all. I was actually at the barber today getting a haircut, and my barber has hired a new assistant barber, and apparently he's getting into fragrance just now. He's never been a big fragrance person, but he's worn fragrances. And he was mentioning how designer fragrances that he has in his collection do not last. He mentioned Burberry, Gucci, what else did he mention? YSL, and a few other brands that he's had that he really loves the scents, he said, but they just don't last on him. And I had given him a sample, and he was wowed by how great the fragrance was performing on him. So we were talking about the performance. So these are designer fragrances. They're not meant to be super potent. Even the Parfum is not super potent, but I would say the Parfum for me is the longest lasting. They don't have like beast mode projection and all that kind of stuff. But for me, the Parfum lingers on the most. But I wouldn't say they linger on forever and ever and ever. But now that the Parfum is on skin, it is smelling super awesome. I like the whole twisting that Sonia Constant has done. For me also, I would say, even though it starts with the DNA right off the bat, it's less of the DNA as the fragrance has developed. But with the Eau de Parfum and the rest of the fragrances, they they seem like they've kept the DNA a lot more than the Parfum edition. Does that make sense? And then with the Vetiver Musc, it's a completely new DNA, I think. It's a different fragrance. Yeah, it's a new collection. Most likely think that's what's going on with this. So yeah, hands down, I think Parfum is the best. Get yourself a bottle. I think you're gonna love it, especially if you like designer fragrances, or if you like the irisy DNA, if you like, you know, Dior Homme Intense. And I would say the Dior Homme Intense and the OG Dior Homme Parfum from 2020 do remind me of the For Him Bleu Noir Parfum. They don't have that vetiver kind of earthy, woody, aromatic smell that the original DNA has. So if you're looking for that OG Dior Homme Parfum DNA, try and find an OG Dior Homme Parfum if you can. It's really hard, but I think the Dior Homme Intense should satisfy. I think the latest edition smells pretty close to the original as well. I don't have the latest. I sampled it in passing when I was in France, but the previous edition is this. And for me, I think the DNA itself is one of the best men's fragrance DNAs. I absolutely think it's super sexy. Love the way it's created. I think Francois Demachet had created a great fragrance, which sadly somebody screwed it all up. All right, let's compare Dior Homme Intense with Narciso Rodriguez For Him Bleu Noir. So the Dior Homme Intense is a Eau de Parfum. The Narciso Rodriguez For Him Bleu Noir Parfum is a Parfum concentration. But even though I just spritzed that on, let me spritz a little bit more of the Bleu Noir Parfum. Even though the Parfum edition of Bleu Noir seems to be a Parfum versus an Eau de Parfum, I think they're acting about the same intensity. I mean, I still prefer the Dior Homme Intense DNA, but if you want a little change up, I think this will satisfy. Definitely one of the best DNAs. But if you're going for the original, try and find the original Dior Homme Intense, because that is the original. It's not Dior Homme Parfum, but it's Dior Homme Intense, which is pretty much a great DNA, really awesome. And in fact, I think if you're looking for Dior Homme Parfum, either the 2020 version or the 2014 edition, it's really tough to find. I think Dior Homme Intense should satisfy, because the DNA is still the same. It's the same fragrance that was originally a Dior Homme, the original, and then it became the Dior Homme Intense, and then became the Dior Homme Parfum, the 2014, and then the 2020, which now in the 2025 became that stuff. But if you're looking for a little change up, I think the For Him Bleu Noir Parfum should satisfy. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. It's a good line of fragrances if you like a classy, masculine, series of men's fragrances. They're a bit underrated. They're not the most hyped men's designer fragrances, but I wanted to highlight them since I have them in the collection, and really stress that the Parfum edition is really, really awesome, and you should get your hands on it. But let me know your thoughts. Are you a fan of these? Which version do you prefer? Have you tried all of them? What do you think about the Eau de Parfum? And what do you think about the Parfum? And have you gotten your nose on the Vetiver Musc? Anyway, thanks so much for watching, guys. If you have any questions or comments, list below. Like this video and share it, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.